When I started following NASCAR, Ricky Rudd instantly became one of my favorite drivers. And to this day, his number 28 Texaco scheme is still my all-time favorite paint scheme. So, when I was researching for a new video and came across an entire sweepstakes for Ricky Rudd from back in 2002, I knew that I had to do a deep dive on it. So, welcome back to Weird NASCAR Rumors. If you're new here and enjoy this video, welcome. There's another 13 videos for you to binge in the playlist below. Now, let's dive into the Forgotten Ricky Rudd sweepstakes. So, in 2002, Ricky Rudd was finishing up a 3-year deal with Robert Yates Racing, and at 45 years old, the man could still drive. In the previous 2 seasons, he had finished 5th and 4th in points, so it was no surprise that he was a driver in demand. The rumors about his future really kicked off in April, when there was some speculation that he might choose to retire at the end of the season. He even acknowledged that this was an option and said that he wanted to make a decision by July. He said that his top choice was to stay at Yates, but if the team couldn't wait for him to make a decision, then he did have other options. At the time, it was assumed that those options included Dale Earnhardt Incorporated and Hendrick Motorsports, where he had raced for 4 years in the early 90s. Then, Elliott Sadler started throwing a wrench into things. Elliott Sadler was in his 4th year with the Wood brothers and wanted to get out of his contract to drive the 21 car and take the next step in his career. At the time, Steve Park was on thin ice at DEI, and Sadler was said to have his eye on taking his seat in the 1 car. At the end of May, news broke that Sadler had been let out of his deal with the Wood brothers, but almost immediately, the rumors about his future swiveled to Robert Yates Racing. Sadler claimed that he didn't know where he would be driving in 2003, but Ricky Rudd said that he was pretty sure that the rumors that Sadler had signed with Yates were true. Then, Rudd's sponsor Texaco, who really liked him, made things even more complicated when company officials said that Rudd could continue as the driver of the Texaco Havoline car for as long as he wanted, which led to some short-lived speculation that Yates was going to try and start a 3rd team for Sadler. It became clear pretty quickly that the 3rd car wasn't going to happen, and suddenly there was renewed speculation that Rudd would be finding a new home. DEI had been mentioned, which would bring Rudd into the Chevy camp, and that did not sit well with the people at Ford, who really wanted to make sure that Rudd would continue as a Ford driver. Another idea that got thrown out was that Ricky Rudd was going to drive for Andy Petri and Jerry Jones. Yes, the same Jerry Jones that owns the Dallas Cowboys. For months during the summer, the idea was floated that Jerry World could be coming to NASCAR. Andy Petri was looking for a partner to help him with his team, and Jerry Jones seemed like the man for the job. Petri's team ran Chevys, and Petri himself was pretty loyal to GM. But the Cowboys had a corporate sponsorship deal with Ford, so it seemed like if a deal was going to get done, it would be contingent on Ford being the team's manufacturer. In early July, Petri said that the deal with Jones was just a week or so away from being finalized. People from Jerry Jones's camp were in Daytona, and a week later, Petri and Rudd were seen together in the Dallas airport, which fueled more speculation. The word was that Rudd was the first choice of Jerry Jones, and Jones certainly had the money to pay him. There was another interesting factor that came into play with this deal, though. Apparently, Texaco had a contract with Yates with an option for 2 more years, and they had decided to exercise that option. In mid-July, USA Today reported that Texaco's parent company, Chevron, was paying $6 million less per year to sponsor the 28 car than UPS was paying to sponsor Dale Jarrett's number 88 car for Yates. So, if Texaco was paying so little, and M&M's was going to pay something like UPS to bring Elliott Sadler to the team, and Robert Yates wanted to remain a 2-car team instead of going to 3 cars, could all of that mean that Yates was going to try and find a way out of the team's contract with Texaco? It seemed like that may be the case, as just a few days later, the Winston-Salem Journal reported that Yates was trying to shop out the Texaco sponsorship to Andy Petri and Jerry Jones. Ultimately, every piece of this deal would fall apart. Neither Rudd nor Texaco would sign with Petri, Jerry Jones would not buy into the team, and Andy Petri Racing would only compete in 2 Cup Series races after the 2002 season had ended. But as the deal fell apart, Rudd's best suitor would take center stage in the silly season rumor mill. If you ask me, of all of the options that were seriously discussed for Ricky Rudd, Chip Ganassi Racing was the best option, and it really looked like this deal was going to happen. There had been some talk about the idea that Rudd was going to a third Ganassi car throughout the whole Andy Petri Jerry Jones saga, but it became the main focus of the Ricky Rudd sweepstakes as Chevron's potential move of Texaco to Ganassi became increasingly public, and it looked like Rudd would be going to Ganassi with them. Actually, in late July, it was reported that it might not just be Texaco Havoline and Rudd going to Ganassi, but the number 28 as well, as Texaco had spent years building brand identity with the number 28. Things seemed to really be moving in the right direction for this whole deal to come together. By the first week in August, it looked like the deal could happen at any moment. It was actually reported that on Friday morning, while the race weekend at Indianapolis was getting started, Rudd said that it wasn't a done deal yet. Then, when he was asked again around midday, he jokingly looked at his watch and suggested that the deal could be done by the late afternoon. A week later, it was announced that Chevron would be holding a press conference at Charlotte Motor Speedway to announce their plans for the future, and immediately the talk was that it was an announcement that Texaco and Rudd were both going to Ganassi, but then it seems that Ford circled the wagons. Ford had made it clear that they did not want to lose Rudd to Dodge the same way that they lost Bill Elliott, and they were willing to pull out all the stops to make sure that didn't happen. The Winston-Salem Journal reported it was just a matter of Ricky Rudd's attorneys reviewing the contracts that would determine whether or not he was announced as Chip Ganassi's third driver, but then the press conference was abruptly canceled the night before. It was reported that there was a breakdown between Rudd and Ganassi in the negotiations. It was speculated that Rudd wanted a 2-year deal, but Ganassi would only offer a 1-year deal. Supposedly, when the deal with Rudd fell apart, Texaco considered pulling the plug on their end of the deal as well, but Ganassi convinced them to stay and that he would find a new driver. The next week, word started spreading that Rudd was going to the Wood Brothers to drive the 21 car. This deal would have kept Rudd with a Ford team, and it appeared that Ford was stepping up and doing some serious legwork to make this deal happen, so that they didn't lose Rudd to Dodge. There was a brief rumor that Dodge, intent on getting Rudd into one of their cars, tried to reignite the deal between Rudd and Ganassi, but soon the Wood Brothers deal was done, and Rudd would be heading to the 21 car. A few weeks later, Chip Ganassi announced Jamie McMurray as the driver of his third car, with Texaco Havoline as the sponsor, and the rest is history. But what if this Rudd-Ganassi deal had worked out? How does that affect Ricky Rudd, and for that matter, Jamie McMurray? I don't think that you could make a case that the Wood Brothers were really Rudd's best option. When you look at Rudd's 3 years with Yates, he scored 3 wins and had points finishes of 5th, 4th, and 10th. During his 3 years with the Wood Brothers, he almost won 1 race at Kansas, narrowly being beaten by Joe Nemechek, but never found victory lane again and had points finishes of 23rd, 24th, and 21st. I think that speaks a lot more to the equipment that he was in than it does to a drop-off in his driving ability, even in his mid to late 40s. Meanwhile, during those same 3 years that Rudd spent with the Wood Brothers, Jamie McMurray was at Ganassi and had points finishes of 13th, 11th, and 12th. I think that Rudd would have certainly put in a similar level of performance in Ganassi equipment, maybe even a little bit better than McMurray. I think that Rudd clearly did not land the best opportunity. But if Ricky Rudd had signed with Ganassi, where does that leave Jamie McMurray? Well, I don't think that it would have affected him all that much. By the time the deal with Ricky Rudd fell apart, Jimmy Spencer's seat in the 41 car for Ganassi was already in serious jeopardy. In the end, Spencer would be released in November, and Casey Mears would eventually be named as his replacement. I may dive a little bit deeper into that in a future video. So I think that if the Rudd deal had worked out, McMurray would have still signed with Ganassi, but to drive the 41 Target Dodge, and he may have even been better off for it. Being a rookie with Sterling Marlin and Ricky Rudd as teammates would have given him two great veteran drivers to learn from. So maybe the bigger question is, what happens to Casey Mears? There's an alternate universe out there where history remembers Jamie McMurray driving the 41 car and then moving on to the 2 car afterward. For more on that, check out my Weird NASCAR Rumors Jamie McMurray video on the playlist linked in the description. This also wouldn't be the last time that Ricky Rudd to Ganassi rumors would ever surface. Like I mentioned in my Weird NASCAR Rumors 2005 video, as his time with the Wood brothers came to an end, there was talk that Rudd may reunite with Texaco at Ganassi for a final farewell year in 2006, though that never worked out either. Anyway, I think this has been one of the most fun videos for me to ever put together, and I'd love to talk to you all about it in the comments. So, feel free to comment and share with a friend. Also, please like and subscribe to help grow the channel, and go check out my friends at Audible using my link in the description to get a free trial and pick out a free audiobook, and Amazon Prime members will get a second book credit to keep. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.